Welcome back, dear friends, to your daily dose of ancient wisdom. Hope you are continuing to enjoy the nectar like stories of the Lord through these podcasts. We request you to continue your patronage and help us spread this ancient wisdom to others who can also benefit, especially in these testing times for the world. Your subscriptions, likes, comments, and support are the energy that propel this endeavor. So request you to continue help us bring to you the eternal wisdom of the scriptures. A big thanks to all the listeners who have embarked on their spiritual journey of devotion and quest for ancient knowledge. As explained earlier, the part summaries for the long skandhas like this with 33 discourses will help us digest the wealth of information provided in bite-sized doses. This podcast is part summary of Srimad Bhagavatam Mahapurana, Tritiya Skandha or Book 3, and summarizes Discourse 11 through 20. So let's start. Discourse 11 is about division of time, such as manmantaras. The minutest particle of material substance known and that which cannot be further divided is known as Paramanu, and it exists in its causal state across the universe. The measure of time extends from the time sunlight takes to penetrate this smallest particle as the smallest measure, all the way through to the creation, preservation, and destruction of the universe across the lifespan of Brahma, which could be a few parardhas as one of the larger measures. Some of the units of time measure are 1 paramanu being the smallest particle, 2 paramanus make 1 anu or an atom, while 3 anus or atoms constitute a thrasarenu, which is the minutest particle of matter, just like a mote seen floating in the space through the sun's rays that enter a room through the keyholes. The time it takes sunlight to travel across the composite of the 3 thrasarenu is known as Thruti, and a Vedha consists of 100 Thrutis. While 3 Vedas constitute what is known as a lava, 3 such lavas constitute a nimesha, which is equivalent to twinkling of the eye. While 3 nimeshas are spoken as kshana, further 5 nimeshas make a kshata, while 15 kshatas make a laghu, 15 laghus make a nadika, while 2 nadikas constitute 1 muhurta. 6 to 7 nadikas, depending upon the short or the long day or night, make a prahara or yama, which is equal to a quarter of a day or night. The day and night of human consists of 4 quarters or yamas. A fortnight of days and nights together is called a paksha, which can be Krishna paksha, which is the full moon to new moon or waning moon, and Shukla paksha, the new moon to full moon or waxing. The 2 pakshas together make a masa or a month. This human month is equal to 1 day in the realm of forefathers or mains. 2 masas or months together make a ritu or a season, while 6 months constitutes an ayana, which is Uttarayana, constituting the northern direction the sun rotates, and the Dakshinayana or the southerly rotation of the sun. 2 ayanas make a samvatsara or a year. The 2 ayanas are equal to a day and night of the gods in heaven of Indra. The human life is deemed to be 100-year span. Our forefathers, therefore, live for 3,000 human years, and the gods live up to 36,000 human years. The year is termed different depending on the revolutions of the sun and other planets as follows. Samvatsara is the time taken by sun to pass through all the zodiac signs, while Parivatsara is the period taken by Jupiter to pass along from one sign in the zodiac to the other. Idavatsara is the Savana year where every month has uniform 30 days, while Anuvatsara has the lunar months each ending with Amavasya or new moon. Finally, Vatsara is the year with 12 months each constituting of 27 days or time taken by the moon to go through each of the 27 stars or nakshatras. The Supreme Lord repeats his cycle of creation, preservation, and destruction in the larger scale of yugas and creates a universal deluge at the end of the 4 yugas. Coming over to the yuga calculation in the virtues or code of conduct in each, we start with Satya Yuga, which is the first and the longest, consisting of 400 celestial years transitioning up to the yuga called Sandhya, 4,000 years of the actual Satya Yuga, followed by another 400 celestial years of transitioning period called Sandhyasma, totaling to 4,800 celestial years or 1.728 million human years. The dharma or code of virtue for the men in Satya or Krita Yuga is represented as a bull walking on 4 limbs, namely austerpenance, internal and external purity, compassion, and truthfulness. Treta Yuga is the second and consists of 3,600 celestial years consisting of Sandhya and Sandhyasma years, equivalent to 1.296 million human years. The dharma or code of conduct for men in this yuga is diminished slightly with the loss of austere penance, so people have virtues of purity, compassion, and truthfulness. Dwapara Yuga is the third and consists of 2,400 celestial years or 864,000 human years. The dharma has 2 limbs only, hence only virtues of compassion and truth prevail in this yuga. Kali Yuga is the fourth and the period in which we are currently living, consists of 1,200 celestial years or 32,000 human years, when only truthfulness prevails as the virtue or code of conduct for humans in the era. The cycle of time taken to complete the 4 yugas, namely Satya, Treta, Dwapara, and Kali, is equal to 4.32 million human years, and this constitutes as 1 Mahayuga. 1,000 of these Mahayugas constitute 1 day in Brahmaloka or for Brahma. Another 1,000 such Mahayugas constitute his 9. So, for Brahma, a day is about 4.32 billion years. After the long day for Brahma, as he prepares to sleep or rest, the creation of the 3 worlds by Brahma are destroyed so he can start afresh the next day. Each day of Brahma is a kalpa. The 360 kalpas make an year, and 100 years is the lifespan of Brahma, which is called Mahakalpa, namely 311.04 trillion human years. This Mahakalpa is divided into 2 parardhas of 50-year spans for Brahma. We are currently living in Kali Yuga of Dvitiya, or the second Parardha of the current Brahma, who is celebrating his first year after 50. There is a new Brahma to start the cycle after every Mahakalpa. Currently, we are in the creation of the seventh Brahma called Satyananda, who is 50 years and 1 day old. The next Brahma will be the Chaturmukha, and then it will be Lord Hanuma as the ninth Brahma. It is also believed that with each exhale of the Supreme Lord, the cosmic universe is created and a Brahma is created, and with each inhale, the cosmic deluge occurs. Hence, the Supreme Lord is beyond birth or death. The two Parardhas are like the Lord's blink of an eye. With these mind-boggling numbers, the age of the cosmos can only be guessed around 1.5 septillion human years, numbers with almost 24 zeros after. As said above, in each day of Brahma, namely a Kalpa, there are 14 Manus ruling. Each Manu rules for a period of 71 and 6/4 revolutions of Kalpas, or revolutions of the 4 Yugas. The night of Brahma, namely the 1,000 Kalpas or 4.3 billion years, is when the world of creations are dissolved and the inanimate creations resurface to help Brahma recreate the next morning. The rule of each Manu is for a duration of 306.72 million human years each time and is called as a Manvantara. Each of the 14 Manus will be ruling in cycles each day of Brahma's creation for the lifespan of Brahma. During each of these Manvantaras, there will be a new Manu, their descendants, separate group of 7 rishis or Sapta rishis, gods, Indra, and attendants of Indras like Gandharvas. During the period of Manus, namely the day of Brahma, the creation of the 3 worlds like the subhuman species, human beings, forefathers, and gods are all created basis the karma performed by the souls in their bodies during the previous kalpa or the previous day's creation. At the end of the day, when Brahma decides to rest for the night, a universal dissolution sets in where the moon and the sun will disappear and all the 3 worlds of Bhu, Bhuva, and Swah get reabsorbed into Brahma's body. This occurs in the form of a fire emanated by Lord Sangharshana, the serpent lord on whom Lord Vishnu rests. With the excessive heat, sages like Bhrigu move to higher worlds from the Maharloka, namely to Janaloka. The 7 oceans of earth get swollen with powerful wind gusts, submerging all the creation. Sage Maitreya continued to tell Vidura that the kalpa they are in is the second parardha, starting with Varaha kalpa, as the Supreme Lord has descended in the form of a divine boar. Further, Sage Maitreya explained to Vidura that the egg-shaped universe is built with the 8 causal principles, namely the primordial matter, Mahat Tattva, the ego, and 5 subtle elements, and further the 16 evolutes, namely mind, the 5 senses of perception, 5 organs of action, and 5 gross elements. There is no further evolution beyond this. The egg-shaped universe has a breadth of 5 million yojanas, namely 40 million miles. The universe is covered with 7 seats, namely earth, water, fire, air, ether, the ego, and Mahat Tattva. Each seat or sphere is 10 times larger than the previous layer it covers. The universe with all these seeds is like a paramanu and comprises many other universes and is called the Brahmanda, which is the transcendent reality of the Supreme Lord Sri Mahavishnu, the Supreme Spirit. Moving on to Discourse 12, which talks about the multiplication of the creation by Brahma, sage Maitreya continued telling Vidura on how Brahma had first evolved 5 varieties of ignorance, namely tamas or ignorance about oneself, moha, which is self-identification with the body, mahamoha, which is the craving for enjoyment, tamisra or anger, and andhata misra, which is looking at death as one's own end. Lord Brahma was not happy with the wicked creation of the 5 ignorances he had created. Therefore, through deep meditation, he purified his thoughts, and from that meditative state evolved a creation of Sanaka, Sanandana, Sanatana, and Sanatkumara, who were highly spiritual and have taken quickly the path of lifelong celibacy. An interesting fact to be noted in the Hindu system is that when a person is self-restrained and detached from worldly afflictions, they can master the process of redirecting their orgasm to flow upwards, defying the common practice of reproduction. People who achieve this celibacy and meditative status are called urdhvaretas and are said to have realized God through their noble deeds. These ascetics, with their lifelong celibacy, have disappointed Brahma as they walked away from the path of entering into grihasthasrama or family life to promote the propagation of the race. Instead, these holy sages, who always remain as young children, left for their penance to Lord Srihari in their eternal bliss. Brahma was fierce and upset that his command to propagate had been flouted by his sons and had knotted eyebrows as an expression of being angry. From these knotted eyebrows came out a body of dark red hue, crying to be named and be presented with a place to live. Since the creature was born weeping, Brahma made him the first god of gods and called him Rudra. The heart, the senses, the vital airs, ether, the air, fire, water, earth, the sun, and the moon, along with penance, were made the abodes or places of residence for Rudra. Further, Brahma blessed Rudra to have names like Manu, Manu, Mahinasa, Mahan, Siva, Ritadhvaja, Ugrareta, Bhava, Kala, Vamadeva, and Dhritavarta. He also gave Dhi, Vritti, Usana, Uma, Niyut, Sarpi, Ila, Ambika, Airavati, Sudha, Diksha as the wives, so he could propagate the race and expand the creation. While the blessings of his father were there, Lord Nilalohita or Rudra started expanding his race with children from his wives that had similar traits as him, namely to devour the creation and spread fear around. Seeing that the balance of creation needs to be restored and the fear in all living beings has to be eradicated, Lord Brahma blessed Rudra and asked him to stop the act of expanding the family or pregnancy with the fearful offsprings and retreat to austere penance that can bring happiness to the universe. Lord Brahma then once again, with the creative energy derived through the penance of the Supreme Lord, created 10 sons and asked them to multiply the creation. These sons were sages Marichi from the mind, Atri from the eyes, Angira from his mouth, Paulastya from his ears, Pulaha from his navel, Kratu from his hands, Bhrigu from his skin, Vasishtha from his breath, Daksha from his thumb, and Narada being the 10th born from Brahma's lap. Then from the right breast of Lord Brahma sprang up Dharma, the god of noble virtues, who in turn fathered Lord Nara and Narayana, the twins. Simultaneously, from his back emerged the Adharma or unrighteousness, from whom sprang Yama, the god of death. From his heart sprang up the god of love, while anger was born from his eyebrows. Greed was born out of his lower lip, and the goodness of speech, namely Vakdevata, was born from his mouth. The oceans were born from his urinary organ, and the chief of Rakshasas and the regent of southwest, namely Niritti, was born from his anus. From the shadow of Brahma was born sage Kardama. This sage Kardama later married Devahuti and gave birth to Lord Kapila. In this manner, Brahma decided to expand the creation to creatures that evolved from his mind and body. After this round of creation from his mind and body, over-enthused to expand the creation, Brahma in a remorseful manner fell in love to the physical beauty in the shape of Vakdevata, who is his own daughter. Seeing this unrighteous and remorseful act of their father, sage Marichi stopped Brahma and respectfully asked him to snap out of the disgraceful Maya that has instilled an immoral and degraded thought in the mind of Brahma in his eagerness to expand the creation. Quickly realizing the levels to which he had stooped down to, Brahma cast off his body, which he believed did not have a right to survive after such a remorseful thought had entered it. This remorseful body that was cast off was picked up by the 4 quarters of earth and continues to linger in the form of darkness or dense fog. Reborn in a pious new body, Brahma, by the grace of Lord, quickly started contemplating how to proceed in a chaste manner the expansion of the creation. Then the 4 faces of Brahma came out. The 4 Vedas, namely Rigveda from the face facing east, Yajurveda from his south face, Samaveda from the west face, and the Atharva Veda from his north face. Also, Upavedas like Shastras, namely duties of the people, Ayurveda, namely the science of medicine, Dhanurveda, namely the science of archery, Gandharva Veda, namely the science of music, Stapatya Veda, namely the science of architecture, Itihasa, namely anecdotes of true happenings of the past, and Puranas, namely the stories of gods that are old but are always new for the readers or listeners, have emerged from him. The religious sacrifices like Shodasi and Utkata from his easterly face, Purisi and Agnistoma from his southern face, Aptyorma and Atirata from the western face, and Vajapeya and Gosava from the northern faces. The 4 priests that are required to perform a religious sacrifice, namely Hota, Advaryu, Udghata, and Prayaschitta, also emerge from Brahma's faces. The 4 pillars of virtues, namely Vidya or purity acquired through knowledge of God, Dana or charity with compassion, Tapas or austerity, and Satya or truthfulness also emerged. And finally, the 4 stages of life, namely along with their modes of life prescribed to each, have started from Brahma. The first stage, being a brahmachari or a religious student. The brahmachari is supposed to take up savitra or a vow of purity for 3 days following their upanayana or a ceremony of sacred thread. The prajapatya or a vow of celibacy for 1 year. Brahma or a vow of celibacy for the entire period of study, and finally Brahat or a vow of lifelong celibacy. The second stage of life as prescribed is the grihastha or the householder, for whom the following 4 livelihoods were prescribed by Brahma, namely vrata or agriculture, sanchaya or priesthood for sacrifices, salina or living on dana received without asking, silochana or living on food grains found scattered in the fields after harvest. Vanaprastha is the third stage of life prescribed for people who recluse to the forest after renouncing worldly pleasures. The livelihood prescribed for them are Vaikhanasa, namely people who live on produce from uncultivated land, Valakhilias, who give away old grain stock when the new ones are received, Audambaras, who live on fruit from tree in the direction of the bed they rise each day, Fenapas, who live on fruits that drop themselves from the trees. Finally, Sannyasasrama is the fourth stage wherein one renounces everything and seeks eternal bliss. The livelihoods prescribed for the sannyasis are Kutikaka, meaning living in a thatched hut at a place and observing all the rules of sannyasi, Bahudaka, who focuses more on knowledge, Hamsa, who spreads the knowledge, and Niskriya or Paramahamsa, who has attained the spiritual bliss. Similarly, from Brahma emerged 4 branches of knowledge, namely Anvisiki or the knowledge of spirit, Trayi, the knowledge of rituals, Vrata, which is the knowledge of agriculture and commerce, and Dandaniti or the political science. The 4-faced Brahma became a Veda personified and is also called as Shabda Brahma or the manifestation in the form of Vaikhari or articulate presence, since from him came the 4 Vyahritis or mystical formulae emanating, namely Bhu, Bhuva, Swah, which came from his mouth, while Pranava or Om came from his heart's cavity. From the hair of Brahma came the Vedic meter Usnik, while Gayatri mantra came from his skin. The Tristubh meter emerged from the flesh, while Anustubh meter emerged from the ligaments, and Jagati from the bones of Brahma. From the marrow of Brahma came the Pankti, and the Brihati came from his breath, while his consciousness emerged as the hard consonants, his body became the vowels. His indriyas became sounds like Shah, Sah, Sa, and Ha. His physical strength goes as Antasthas or semi-vowels like Ya, Ra, La, and Va. The 7 notes of scale of rhythm, namely Shadja, Rishabha, Gandhara, Madhyama, Panchama, Daivata, and Nisada, are represented by the recreated Brahma. Finally, the unmanifested form of Brahma in the form of Pranava, and beyond him is the Supreme Lord Srihari, who permeates the infinite or Brahman. After his rebirth, realizing that the expansion of creation is still not happening as planned, Brahma was greatly concerned when once again through meditation to Lord Supreme, two forms were created, one as a man and the other as a woman. The first sovereigns of the world, called Swayambhuva Manu and Shatarupa, were created thus. With the blessings of Brahma, Swayambhuva Manu and Shatarupa as a couple gave birth to two sons, namely Priyavrata and Uttanapada, and three daughters by the names of Akuti, Devahuti, and Prasuti. Akuti, the eldest daughter, was married to Ruchi, Devahuti to sage Kardama, and Prasuti to Daksha. The children of these three daughters started filling up the universe. Moving on to Discourse 13, we talk about Lord Srihari being born as Yajnavaraha or Divine Boar. Sri Sukha continued narrating to Parikshit how Vidura, after hearing the above from sage Maitreya, was intrigued and asked what did Swayambhuva Manu do next. To which sage Maitreya said, when Swayambhuva Manu and Shatarupa came into existence, they prayed humbly to Brahma. Brahma was pleased and blessed them to fulfill his desire and expand life through birth of children. For this, Manu humbly appealed to Brahma that there is no land available for them to expand. Realizing that the globe of earth has been fully submerged to the netherland during the cosmic deluge and never resurfaced, Lord Brahma started thinking hard in mind of Lord Srihari, the supreme, and the purpose of all penance and ritual sacrifices, namely yajnas, as the only one who could provide a way out of the situation. Just as Brahma was thinking hard, a strange thing happened. From his right nostril came out a thumb-sized white boar. As Brahma and others were looking, that thumb-sized boar grew into a large white wild boar as big as an elephant. Perplexed about the strange occurrence, Brahma, his sons Marichi, Sanaka and brothers, Manu and other Brahmanas stood awestruck looking at the magnificent white boar as large as a mountain now and wondering who or what was it. The white boar grunted a loud roar that resonated all the quarters of the world, with which everyone instantly recognized the white boar to be the incarnation of none else than the Supreme Lord of all yajnas, Srihari. All the inhabitants of Janaloka, Tapoloka, or Satyaloka looked at the glorious form of the Lord and started extolling him as the quintessence of the Vedas. Pleased with the sages and Brahma, the Varaha or the divine boar roared once more as if reassuring Brahma and others that he will salvage the earth from the depths. The white tusk shed a lustrous light when he glanced around with benevolent glances. The Lord, representing all of sacrifice or yajnas, started snorting and sniffing around for earth while sages like Marichi and others looked around. He then, with his thick coat of stiff white bristles and erect tail, shaking his mane, sprang into the air as if tearing the clouds with his hoofs, took a deep plunge into the causal ocean waters. The ocean tore upon as if it were a mountain tossed in, creating huge waves. Cleaving the water with the hoofs, the Lord reached to the bottom of the deep ocean, and there he discovered the globe of earth that got absorbed by the Lord himself at the end of the previous kalpa. He picked up the globe of earth on his broad snout and balanced with his enormous tusks and started rising up the surface of the water. As Lord Yajnavaraha was rising from the bottom of the oceans, there appeared a demon named Hiranyaksha of great power who was bent upon fighting the Lord and retaining the earth for the netherworlds to govern. The Lord Yajnavaraha was irked with the taunts and the attacks of Hiranyaksha, and with great ease killed the demon like a lion killing an elephant. With the blood and dirt all over him, the Lord rose above the water with the globe of earth on snout, placed it on the surface of water, and then by the dint of his divine power gave the earth the power to float on the waters. All the sages and Brahma prayed Lord Yajnavaraha with Vedic mantras that personify him as the Yajna, or the sacred sacrificial Lord. Merely hearing to this description of the Lord as written by Vyasa is believed to be bestowing great things to people who read or hear this praise of the Lord. So this is what they had to say. Victory, victory to you, O invincible Lord, the promoter of sacrifices. We make obeisance to you, even as you shake your divine body consisting of the three Vedas in order to free it from moisture. We bow once more to you, who have assumed the form of a boar with the special object of rescuing the earth, and in the pores of whose bristles lie hidden the various sacrifices. This form of yours, O Lord, made up as it is of sacrifices, is one that cannot be easily perceived by the sinful. The various Vedic metres of Gayatri find a place in your skin. The holy kusa grass is your bristles, clarified butter is your eyes, and the functions of the four priests, namely the hota and others, are your four legs. The shuk, or a sort of large wooden ladle used for pouring clarified butter on the sacrificial fire, is located in your snout, while the sruva, a smaller ladle used for pouring clarified butter into the larger shuk, O Almighty Lord, finds a place in your nostrils. The ida, or a dish from which food is taken at the sacrifices, exists in your belly, while the kamasas, or vessels used at sacrifice for drinking the soma, generally in square shape, made of wood and furnished with a handle, abide in the cavity of your ears. Prasistra, or a vessel in which the Brahma's share of soma is poured, exists in your mouth, and the grahas, or the ladles used for taking up a portion of soma out of a larger vessel, is in your throat. Your act of chewing, O Lord, constitutes the Agnihotra, which is pouring of oblations into the sacred fire. Your repeated descents into the world of material things is what is known as Dikshayana Ishti, or the offering of oblations into sacred fire at the time of consecration of a sacrifice. The three ishtis, known by the name of upasads, which precede the sutya, or pressing of soma in a jyotis soma sacrifice, constitute your neck. The pranayana ishti, that which follows the diksha or consecration, and udayana ishti is that which is performed at the end of the sacrifice, are your tusks. The pravargya, or the ceremony called Mahavira, performed at the beginning of every upasad, forms your tongue, while the sabhya and avasthya fires from your head, and putting of the bricks in layers or rows for preparation of a sacrificial altar, constitute your vital airs, revealed as you are in the form of a sacrifice. Your generative fluid is the soma, and your sitting posture constitutes the sacrificial rites performed thrice in the morning, at midday, and in the evening each day. The 7 constituents of your body are the 7 classes of the main sacrifices, namely Agnisthoma, Atyagnisthoma, Utkha, Sodashi, Vajapeya, Atiratra, and Aprotyoma, while the joints of your body constitute the satras, or the sacrifices that are performed over a long duration. The tendons of your body form the various sacrifices. You, O Lord, in your person combine all the yajnas, or sacrifices in which soma is not used, and the kratus, or sacrifices in which the soma or nectar is used. Hail, hail to you who represent in your person all the mantras or sacred formulas employed, the deities worshipped, and the materials used by the way of oblations in a sacrifice, as well as all sacrificial acts. Nay, you also embody the wisdom gained through dissipation, devotion, and self-control, and are our teacher imparting all knowledge. Hail, hail to you, borne by you on the pointed ends of your tusks, O Lord. The earth with its mountain, O supporter of the globe, shines resplendent like a lotus plant with leaves supported on the tusks of a lordly elephant emerging from the water. Again, with the terrestrial globe supported on the tusks of this boar-like form of yours, which constitutes the three Vedas, namely Rig Veda, Yajur Veda, and Samaveda, looks as charming as the beauty of a huge mountain with a mass of clouds hanging on its summit. Kindly place this mother of the entire animate and inanimate creation, who is your spouse too, firmly on the water in order to make her habitable for all, for you are the Father of all beings. Then we shall make obeisance to you as well as to her in whom you have deposited your seed in the form of sustaining power, even as the sacrificer invokes the sacrificial fire in an arani or piece of wood used for kindling of fire by attrition with the chanting of sacred mantras. Who else than you, O Lord, could venture to lift up the earth that had sunk into the lowest depths of water? This is, however, nothing miraculous to you, the abode of all wonders, who have created this most marvelous universe by your Maya or wonderful creative energy. When you shook your body composed of the Vedas, we, the inhabitants of the Janaloka and Satyaloka, got splashed and thoroughly departed by the drops of holy water flying from the end of your mane. Alas, he has verily lost his wits who seeks to know your endless exploits in their totality. O Lord, bring happiness to the whole universe which stands diluted through contact with the objects of senses brought by your Yoga Maya. While the sages sang the praises of Lord Yagnavaraha, the Lord placed the earth on the surface of the water and vanished. It is said that anyone who narrates or listens to the story of Srihari with devotion, Lord Janardhana will rid one of all sorrows and sins. All their desires are granted, and the highest state of spirituality shall be conferred unto them. One who drinks the nectar of Lord's stories through their ears quickly ends the cycles of births and deaths. The story of Lord Yagnavaraha is powerful and bestows great things to people who recall this with devotion. Continuing to Discourse 14, which talks about Diti's childbirth. As sage Maitreya told the tale of Lord Yagnavaraha, Vidura was surprised and with great devotion asked Maitreya about how the Lord with the tusks had come to an encounter with Demon King and pleaded him to elaborate. Pleased with the question of Vidura, sage Maitreya recalled what he had at one time heard from Lord Brahma when he was responding to a query of all the gods about Diti, the second daughter of Daksha Prajapati. Diti, along with her 13 sisters, was married to sage Kashyapa, the son of sage Marichi, who was born to Brahma. Jealous about all her sisters already having conceived kids, Diti had a burning desire to copulate with her husband Kashyapa at that very instant, without recognizing that it was the twilight hours of the evening. Sage Kashyapa, recognizing the hour and in empathy to Diti's desire, explained to her that the hour of twilight in the evening is regarded as the hour for demons, the ghosts, and the spirits reaching out to their Lord Sri Rudra. Lord Shankara or Shiva is believed to ride his bull Nandi, accompanied by Sati, the sister of Diti. He goes around the earth in the twilight hours, appeasing the Rudraganas, and hence the time is not appropriate for carnal pleasures. This Lord Shiva is respected by the entire universe, and even Lord Brahma and the other gods respect the bounds set by him, despite his deceiving looks like matted hair and ash-smeared body. Further, sage Kashyapa assured Diti that he would be delighted to copulate with her after the nightfall, and conveyed that it is the responsibility of every householder or grihastha to fulfill the desire of his wife, through whom he is destined to achieve the threefold objects of human pursuit, namely worldly possessions, gratification of the senses, and the religious merits. Despite her husband's resisting, Diti, who was engulfed in passion, shamelessly forced Kashyapa into an intercourse. Treating it to be the unavoidable Maya of time, sage Kashyapa, after the prohibited act of the twilight hour, took a bath and sat back in a deep penance of remorse. After a while, realizing her shameful intolerance to wait till the nightfall, Diti approached sage Kashyapa with tears swelling in her eyes, asked her husband to pray to Lord Shiva to forgive her and not punish her children for her offense. Seeing Diti, sage Kashyapa, who was divine himself, foresaw the future and told her that, due to the inauspicious time she had succumbed to the carnal pleasures, she would give birth to sons who shall be evil-minded, extremely cruel towards women, innocent creatures, and noble souls. He continued to tell that those demonic sons of Diti will reign terror and unrighteousness in the world, for which the Lord Supreme Sri Hari himself will have to come to the earth and slay them to death. Hearing the fate of her sons, Diti was in a way happy that her children were going to meet their end in the hands of Sri Hari, and since they shall die seeing the glorious and blissful Lord himself, they shall attain the highest heavens. Realizing that Diti had recognized the truth of Lord Sri Hari and his divine portent, and that she was genuinely sorry for her act, sage Kashyapa, out of compassion, told her that although she would have sons that are evil, she would have a grandson who would be a stark contrast to the father and be the most devout person of Lord Sri Hari. Further, this grandson, who will be the personification of devotion, shall liberate the entire generations of Diti's offsprings. Moving on to Discourse 15, which talks about sage Sanaka and brothers cursing Jaya and Vijaya, the doorkeepers of Lord Sri Mahavishnu. Fearing the prophecy of her husband sage Kashyapa, Diti decided to retain her sons in her womb without delivering for 100 years. Due to this unusual act and the immense demonic strength of the two sons in the womb, there was darkness and gloom that started permeating the entire world. Unable to bear this unusual gloom that began to spread darkness in all directions, the gods approached Lord Brahma, trying to find out about the gloom and seek a solution for the darkness. Upon reaching the Brahmaloka, they paid their due reverence to Lord Brahma and extolled him in many ways as if he were the Supreme Lord and the creator of the entire universe. Smiling at the ignorance of the gods to the mistake that they are committing in treating him as a Lord Supreme, Sri Hari, Brahma, the creator of the world, as commanded by the Lord, spoke to the gods as follows. The mind-born sons of Lord Brahma, namely sage Sanaka, Sanandana, Sanatana, and Sanat Kumara, once through their power of meditation and penance, wanted to visit Vaikuntha, the abode of Lord Sri Mahavishnu or Lord Sri Hari. It is in this Vishnu Loka or Vaikuntha, the most ancient person, Lord Narayana, who is an embodiment of pure sattva and righteousness personified, dwells as recognized by the Upanishads. The four brothers, who always look like young boys of 6 years of age, walked up to Vaikuntha through the divinity attained by worshipping Lord Vishnu with a steadfast devotion and fulfillment of duties without any desire for the benefits. There, they started noticing that the residents also looked similar to Lord Srihari himself. There in Vaikuntha, that spreads over 7 campuses of beautiful gardens and devotees who are in ecstasy of the Divine Lord, the Kumaras saw the garden called Naishreyasa, which had all the 4 seasons at any given time, and had wish-yielding trees abundant with fruit and flowers, rich in flavor and nectar. In that garden stood the flying vimanas, or the aerial cars, with Gandharvas and their beautiful wives who were singing the stories of the Lord, indifferent to the mesmerizing nature around there, as the devotion of Lord was sweeter than the flavors and nectars and fragrances of any of the fruit, flowers, even the bees that hummed around the nectars of blooms of lotus flowers in the pristine waters of the lakes there. The bee sounds there sounded as if they were humming the Vedas and singing the glorious stories of the Supreme Lord. Even the songbirds like the cuckoo birds, the chakravaka, the chataka, the swans were making sounds that sounded like a symphony for the Lord. The vimanas, the walls of the palaces, the stairs of the lakes, all studded with gold, diamond, emeralds, corals, and gemstones, stood pale against the mere reflection of Goddess Sri Lakshmi, who is Lord Vishnu's consort. This Goddess Sri Lakshmi adoringly worships the Lord with tulasi or basil and sage leaves there in the Vaikuntha. Realizing that no person can reach the realm of splendor so long as they indulge in frivolous talks, are irrational, and denounce the Supreme Lord, who alone can shatter the sins of people and save them from falling prey to hell, Sanaka brothers were delighted that they could overcome the Yogamaya to reach the Vaikuntha, which cannot be attained by Karma Yoga or Jnana Yoga or even the Vairagya. The 4 brothers passed through the 6 campus doors of Vaikuntha, enjoying the splendid sights while not being attached to any, and reached the 7th entrance, which was to the palace where Lord Vishnu resided. There they saw 2 guards armed with mace and adorned with all the valuable armlets, bracelets, earrings, waistbands, and garlands of silver flowers. The guards had a puzzled and a serious look of being angry on seeing Sanaka brothers, and in their usual manner, Sanaka brothers were trying to pass through the 7th gate as if they were passing through the other gates. It is then that the guards stopped the brothers from entering the palace and treated them as if they were unworthy kids who did not deserve to step foot into Vaikuntha. This irked the sages, who did not appreciate the fact that 2 guards who stood directly at the feet of Lord Supreme himself did not have the maturity to see the world as one and discriminated people and things based on their appearances. Further infuriated with the blockage, Sanaka and others pronounced a curse on the 2 guards that since they see duality of good and bad, worthy and unworthy, and love and hatred, and discriminated them, they deserve to be born in the spheres of the world where 3 vicious propensities, namely lust, anger, and greed, prevail. Hearing the curse of the sages, the guards Jaya and Vijaya felt remorseful for their action of not recognizing the divinity of the boyish-looking sages and realizing their mistakes of seeing duality even when in Vaikuntha. They prostrated to the sages and pleaded them for relief from the curse bestowed onto them. Just then, the Lord Sri Mahavishnu came outside the palace of the gate, where Jaya and Vijaya were pleading the sage Sanaka. The very Lord of the universe, whose lotus feet the ascetics and sages do penance for years to get a mere glimpse, came out from the palace by foot to the Brahmana sages, while his consort Sri Mahalakshmi and the entourage of carriers of chhatra, or the white umbrella laced with pearls, carried on top of the Supreme Lord, chauris, the fans that are made of the tails of chamari murga or yaks, were following him closely. Seeing the ever-charming Lord Srihari, Sanaka and brothers stood spellbound as they were by the countenance of the Lord, whom they have only envisioned in their profound meditations. The exhilarating energy, the divine fragrance, and the gracious yellow robes, the golden jewelry, the ever-pleasing smile, and the affectionate glances of the Lord were riveting to all that stood there. Sanaka and brothers, whose heart desire was fulfilled due to the appearance of the Lord, began to extol him out of ecstasy and delight. Sanaka and others, singing praises of the Lord, also submitted the reasons for them pronouncing the curse on the gods, and that the all-powerful Lord is free to either nullify the curse for Jaya and Vijaya, or even punish them for having lost their cool, being sages. They further submitted that the Lord could even extend the reward to the gods. Moving on to Discourse 16, which talks about the fall of Jaya and Vijaya from Vaikuntha. Hearing the devotion-filled submissions of the sages, Sanaka and others, the Lord spoke to them all, saying as follows: These attendants of mine, Jaya and Vijaya by name, have committed a great offense against you. At the same time, they have ignored me too. Hence, the punishment you have given them is approved by me. The offense that my attendants have committed against the Brahmanas, the highest deities for me, is the same as me committing the mistake. Hence, dear sages, I have personally come to ask for forgiveness from you. The wrong done by an employee or the servant is typically a blame for the master too, like white leprosy disfigures the skin of the person. You all know that even for people who commit heinous crimes, hearing the stories of me is immediate purification. My stories get that great power from the great sacrificial austerities of the Brahmanas. It is because of my service and respect to the holy sages like you, even the dust of my lotus feet has gained the power to wipe out the sins of the world, and Goddess Sri Lakshmi, whose single glance bestows riches to even gods like Indra, always resides with me even when I am unattached to anything, including her. I relish the fact of enjoying the delicacies that Brahmanas eat themselves, sacrificing their consequences to me through the process of uposana, more than what I enjoy in the form of oblations poured into the fire during sacred rituals. My Yogamaya is infinite, and the water that washes my feet becomes the holy Ganga that even Lord Shiva bears on his head. But I bear the dust of the Brahmana's feet on my head. So why would anyone not show reverence and bear with the Brahmanas? The Brahmanas and the cows are the defenseless creatures that are a representation of my own body. Yama, the god of punishments appointed by me, will torment anyone who sees the bodies different than me. One must, with a kind and smiling countenance, respect the Brahmanas even when the Brahmanas utter harsh words. These servants of mine have acted against you without knowing my mind, and therefore I deem it fit that they must undergo transgression of birth and death thrice before they return to Vaikuntha, and as the master of such people, the same shall be a punishment for me too. Jaya and Vijaya, this curse of Brahmanas has my approval, as your fall from Vaikuntha as demons has already been pronounced by Goddess Sri Lakshmi when you have in the past ignored her instruction when I was in my yoga nidra. So you shall take 3 births on earth, and through intense hatred and anger towards me, remember me constantly. I will have to take avatars to rid the earth of your sins, and after the 3rd death you shall permanently return back to my abode. After hearing the Lord, Jaya and Vijaya lost all the radiance and with shattered pride began falling to earth, while all the attendants of Vaikuntha started expressing their grief. Jaya and Vijaya, for their first birth, entered the seed of Kashyapa deposited in the womb of Diti. It is by the glory of these twin demons that the world has been eclipsed in gloom. Moving to Discourse 17, which talks about the birth of Hiranyakashipu and Hiranyaksha and their conquest of the 4 quarters. This way, Diti bore the first demons of the world in her womb and held them for 100 years in fear of losing them to Lord Srihari as foreseen by her husband Kashyapa. Upon the arrival of the time of birth of these twin demons, there were many evil signs that occurred in all the 3 worlds, namely earth, heaven, and the worlds in between. Once born, these twins grew into huge mountain-like sizes with their gold crowns and brilliant bracelets. Sage Kashyapa, their father, had named the first-born twin, who is the younger one, to be Hiranyakashipu, or the one with golden complexion, while the second-born, or the eldest of the twins, as Hiranyaksha, or the one with eyes in the color of red gold. Fearing death, the eldest Hiranyakashipu worshipped Brahma and got boon of death only under extremely rare circumstances, details of which we will cover in future stories about Prahlada. Hiranyaksha prayed Brahma and got great unparalleled strength and the earth under his control. Puffed with pride, Hiranyaksha kicked the earth in the form of a ball into the deep ocean floor, while Hiranyakashipu went around the world seeking an adversary in combat. This way, the 2 brothers reigned terror and invaded the 4 quarters of the world. One day, Hiranyaksha, with pride of his brute strength, went to heaven to ask people to fight, but saw everyone fled in fear of him already. Eager to fight, he approached Varuna, the god of waters residing in the oceans, to challenge him for a duel, since it is believed Varuna is a great warrior. Hearing all the taunts of Hiranyaksha, Varuna did not want to engage the demon in a battle, stating that he was getting old and has renounced battles, but instead suggested to him that he must seek out Lord Srihari, who is the primordial matter, who can satiate his craving for war. Moving to Discourse 18 is about the encounter of Hiranyaksha and the divine boar or Yajnavaraha. Hearing Varuna's advice, Hiranyaksha rushed to seek a war with Lord Vishnu. With the help of sage Narada, he understood that Lord Srihari was currently in the form of a wild boar in the waters, trying to retrieve the globe of earth that he had kicked earlier. He saw the wild boar carrying earth on the snout, with huge white tusks rising up in the ocean, and taunted him to war. He abused Srihari in the form of Yajnavaraha in many ways, but the Lord, without losing the cool, first brought the earth to the surface, placed it on the surface of water, gave it the divine powers of balance, and then with a loud grunt went back into the water to settle the duo with the demon. The Lord Yajnavaraha roasted back and challenged Hiranyaksha to a duel. The Lord then created a mace for himself, which became to be known as Kaumodaki, since it's providing great joy to earth by killing the demon, and began to indulge him in a fight. The battle was fierce, and both were injuring each other and raging against each other, while the ocean was being tormented. Brahma, along with all the sages and the gods, came to see the fierce battle and were getting concerned that the Lord, out of pity for his erstwhile attendants, is going easy, and the demon was getting stronger as the twilight hour was approaching. They started praying to Lord Srihari in the form of Yajnavaraha to rid the world of the burden of the demon by killing him without any more delay and pity. Moving to Discourse 19 about killing of Hiranyaksha by the divine boar. Hearing the prayers of Brahma and other sages there, the Lord laughed heartily and accepted their prayers with a glance of love and affection. The Lord took Kaumodaki and was about to hurl it to the chin of Hiranyaksha when his mace came flying and hurt the Lord on his face, due to which the Kaumodaki started slipping and fell into the ocean. Raged by this, Lord summoned his discus, the Sudarshana, and dodged the mace hurled at him and caught it with ease. The Lord then asked Hiranyaksha to pick up the mace from his hand. Raged and puffed with pride, the demon Hiranyaksha refused to take the weapon from Lord's hand, instead summoned a trident and hurled towards Lord Yajnavaraha. With the discus Sudarshana, the Lord tore apart the trident in mid-air. Hiranyaksha then resorted to many conjuring tricks and started hurling and hurting Lord and hiding from his view. He approached Lord to crush him in his arms, but through his Yoga Maya, Lord Varaha appeared outside his arms. Lord Adhokshaja or Lord Keshava or Lord Srihari, as Hiranyaksha began to hurt with fist fight, just casually slapped Hiranyaksha on the left ear. Realizing the full divine form of Lord Srihari standing there with his discus, the demon Hiranyaksha began to wheel with the bulged eyes and crashed to earth due to the casual slap of the Lord. Hiranyaksha fell to the ground with his large tusks and died with a steadfast gaze at the brilliant countenance of the Lord. The radiance of Hiranyaksha did not fade even when he was dead, as he fell down looking at the Supreme Lord's affectionate lotus eyes. All the sages, Brahma, and the earth came to extol the Lord for his benevolent act of ridding the earth of a sin. Having slain the demon Hiranyaksha, the Lord in the form of Yajnavaraha left for his divine abode Vaikuntha. Hearing this anecdote of slaying Hiranyaksha and the rescue of earth by Yajnavaraha as told by sage Maitreya to Vidura will rid the listeners of heinous sins like killing of a Brahmana too. This narrative confers extraordinary merit, wealth, fame, longevity, and all the desires. In battles, it promotes the strength of vital organs of action, and when one hears it with devotion during their last moments of life, rids them from the transgression of birth and death and provides Kaivalya of Lord Narayana. Discourse 20 is about various species of living beings created by Brahma. Sage Saunaka and others asked Sage Suta with reverence about what did the Swayambhuva Manu do after he got the foothold on earth, and what did Vidura further learn from Sage Maitreya. Sage Suta told Saunaka and other sages at the Naimisha forest that Vidura continued asking Sage Maitreya as to how did Lord Brahma continue the creation of the world after he had created Prajapatis, and how did the Prajapatis, the Marichi and Swayambhuva Manu evolve the creation? Did they do it independently, or did they evolve it in conjunction with their wives? Hearing these excellent questions that demonstrated Vidura's keen interest in knowing more of nectar-like Lord's stories, Sage Maitreya continued to narrate as follows. When the equilibrium of the three gunas got disturbed by the prarabdha or destiny of jivas, namely the souls of all living beings, which is loosely termed as karma, Mahat Tattva or principles of cosmic intelligence evolved. Out of the three gunas and the combinations thereof with Mahat Tattva, for jivas with dominance of rajas, evolved the ego or the source of five elements. The five elements in combination to the three gunas and also in combination with five gross elements formed many groups. All these groups were incapable of any creation in isolation or in combination by themselves. But with the divine energy of the Lord, these combinations formed a shining egg. For 1,000 years, this egg lay still on the waters of universal deluge in a lifeless state. When the Lord entered the egg, a presiding deity from the egg evolved from the navel of the god. Lord Brahma, that sprang up from the lotus of the navel point, was radiant like 1,000 suns, and the lotus evolved to be the abode of all living beings. With the blessing of Lord Brahma, the creator started creating hierarchical structure for various worlds in accordance to the plans evolved in previous kalpas. When Brahma started the creation, first came the avidya or ignorance from the shadow of Brahma. This avidya is of 5 times, namely Tamisra, Andhatamisra, Tamas, Moha, and Mahamoha, as explained earlier. From this ignorance were born the Yakshas and Rakshasas. Not pleased with this creation of ignorance, Brahma cast off his body to assume a new body. The body that was cast off was taken up by Yakshas and Rakshasas and thus formed the night and the source of hunger and thirst. Overcome by hunger and thirst, the Yakshas and Rakshasas started a mass destruction of the world around and even came to devour Brahma. Unable to convince them that they spare him as father, as Yakshas did not agree to save Brahma, while Rakshasas agreed not to spare eating him, Brahma decided to drop that mortal body of his, from which the day and the jivas with divinity dominated by sattva, namely gods, evolved. Brahma in the next bodily form evolved, and from his hand on his hip evolved demons who had an excessive fondness to women. These demons or asuras were so intoxicated with lust that they even approached Brahma for their carnal pleasure. Laughing at their stupidity, Brahma first tried to explain to them, but realized how blinded they were with lust. Brahma fled from there and sought help of Lord Srihari. Per his advice, Lord Brahma cast off that evil body, which became the evening twilight or Sandhya, or the intervening time of day and night. The Asuras, engulfed in lust and passion, took the twilight to be a beautiful girl with anklets and girdle and a ravishing body that taunted emotionally weak demons. Seeing the sight of his creation, enjoying his creations, Brahma laughed merrily, from which evolved Gandharvas or celestial musicians and Apsaras or the divine dancers of the heaven. After this, Brahma, still not happy about his creation, gave up his body that became the moonlight, and Vaivasu and Gandharvas took possessions of that body. Brahma came, evolved again, and this time from his sloth or laziness arose bhutas or ghosts and pisachas or devils or fiends. Looking at the naked bhutas and the pisachas with their disheveled hair, Brahma quickly closed his eyes, and thus evolved the sleep and the yawn. People who yawn and sleep while drooling become the prey of bhutas and pisachas. Realizing that he is full of energy and vigor, Brahma evolved from his invisible body sandhyas or twilights and pitras or mains or forefathers. The pitras took possession of the invisible body of Brahma, and in this invisible body the pitras accept oblations or sandhya poured by people for their departed forefathers. It is from this invisible body also that evolved siddhas and vidyadharas and antararadhana, or the art of meditating within oneself. One day, as Brahma saw his own reflection in water and started admiring it, so evolved Kimpurushas and Kinnaras from the reflection. Taking the shadowy form of Brahma's reflection, these Kinnaras and Kimpurushas sang praises of the Lord. Tired as he was, when Brahma stretched his body while thinking how he was not able to pick up the pace of creation, shed his body in a sullen mood. The hair from that body transformed into snakes, while from the body that crawled evolved the ferocious serpents and nagas with hoods. Then, when Brahma from his mind created Manus who promote the welfare of the world, he felt happy as if the object of his life has been accomplished. To these Manus or mind born, Brahma gave the human form. The Manus extolled and paid their reverence to Brahma, unlike any other creatures born prior to them to Brahma. All other creatures like gods, Gandharvas, Pitras applauded Brahma for the creation of the human forms and agreed to receive the oblations poured by these people. Then, with the austere penance, adoration, yoga, and samadhi or deep meditation, controlled senses, and renunciation, Brahma created sages or rishis like Marichi and gave all the traits of his own body to them. Thus concluded sage Maitreya the creation and expansion of the world by Brahma. With this, we conclude the summary of the 11th to the 20th discourse under Book 3 or Tritiya Skandha of Srimad Bhagavatam Mahapurana. We will continue to podcast partial summaries for every 10 discourses, followed by the summary for the entire Book 3. Requesting again to subscribe, like, contribute, comment, and share these podcasts of ancient wisdom. Thank you all once again for the patronage.